Welcome to Safe and Sound, produced exclusively for Fawley Refinery. My name's Frank Bough, and in this special program, we'll be hearing about the safety successes of 1987, and of course the hurdles facing us between now and the end of the year. There's also a chance to win a fabulous weekend in New York, so stay with us, and you too could stay safe and sound. Wowee, holiday for two in New York. Fine, exciting city. Really is a wonderful prize, and we'll be giving you all the details about how to enter towards the end of the program. Now, before that, we're meeting many people: Jimmy Bannister, Don Crosby, Alison Catamole, people who all have an important contribution to make to this program, as well as playing a favorite piece of music. Now, my first guest on Safe and Sound is, I suspect anyway, possibly the most familiar face on the refinery, Reg Clay. A very warm welcome. Now, Reg, as manager at Fawley, you're obviously very conscious of the safety performance there. In fact, I know in 1986 you achieved a terrific record, recognition as the safest Esso refinery in Europe. Now, that's quite something. A lot of pride in that, I imagine.
A lot of pride and a lot of hard work, and a lot of sadness actually when the record was lost. But we've started to put our act together again. We've started to work hard at getting our safety performance back onto the right track, and I believe we're on the right track again.
Okay, so that record, how did you do it?
How did we do it? Well, it started back, I think, about 15 years ago. We decided in our minds, and we said to everyone, we're going to get ourselves to being the best in the world. We're going to not have these substandard performances. And when you start on that, you start on a long program. It involves training a lot of people, talking to a lot of people, working hard, getting a lot of commitment from people. And in the end, we got a program together, which has led to a steady improvement. And it came together in 1986, when we passed over 1,000 days without a time-losing injury safely. And we spent a lot of time trying to make sure people have got safety high up in their minds.
Okay, now, obviously, apart from the risk to personnel, as they say, in other words, you want to look after your people, you don't want them to have accidents and be injured. Why is safety such a priority? Because you do give it a very big priority, don't you?
Yes, well, in our industry, we have the potential to cause a lot of possible damage. And we need to be extra special careful that we don't have that sort of incident. We look at it on several fronts. We look at it on a personal front. We don't want people to go home from Fawley having injured themselves. And so I think that's a message everyone can relate to. We have a situation where we have a lot of plant, a lot of equipment around, which we need to take care of, but we also want to operate without causing any concern to our neighbours, and therefore safety is of the highest priority.
Let's talk a bit about things like targets and objectives, and in particular, things like fires and road traffic incidents. Now, how do you actually decide on an acceptable level of incident in those two areas? Is there an acceptable level?
Of course, there's no acceptable level, but we are trying to get better each year. And when we talk about targets and objectives, they're all designed to try to say that we're going to get better. So this month, we're trying to do better than last month. We're trying to do better than the month before and the year before. So we have targets in that way to help us guide ourselves down a path of improving safety performance.
Okay, so now we're looking ahead at other objectives for 1988. New year on the horizon. What are the prime objectives?
One advantage of a new year is you start with a clean slate, in a sense, that it's a brand new year, it's in front of you, and you're looking forward to doing the best you possibly can. We know historically that January is a difficult month for us. It seems to be people come back after Christmas, they feel relaxed, and they don't set off the new year always too well. So we will be putting in, and we are putting in through this program, a special effort to try to get people to think safety, to make them think that things will be good in 1988 and that safety will be even better.
Now, I see that you're working towards targets under the banner Join Forces with Safety in 88.
We need some specific targets to help us through 1988, and the one that we really would like everybody to focus on is to beat our best year ever in terms of time-losing injuries, injuries worse than first aid, and medical treatment injuries. And we're looking to beat the previous best, and that is 8 injuries of that type during 1988. So in 1988, we would like to see a performance which is better than we've ever achieved before.
You can do that, you think?
I think we can do it. It's something which I know we can do it. We've done it for several months in a row on a pro rata basis, and I believe we'll be there. A little bit of hard work, a little bit of more commitment on everybody's part, and we'll be there.
team effort is very important anyway in all the things you do at Fawley, isn't it?
When you have a large site like ours with people working in small teams and large teams to achieve very complex objectives, not only in safety but in our general work objective, you can't do it yourself. You need teams that work together.
Now, the Safe and Sound concept is obviously just part of a refinery-wide campaign to help achieve your safety objectives in 1988. Can you tell us a bit more about the campaign as a whole? What other things are going on?
Well, there'll be a number of exciting things, and I don't want to spoil it by telling you about everything right now, but I think the Safe and Sound will get the year off to a good start. We're looking forward to a family safety day in the mid-year, and we will involve our employees and their families, and we hope they will involve us in an activity which will be exciting and worthwhile attending.
Well, now, you've already proved that you can be the safest refinery in Europe, so really, may I wish you from the bottom of my heart every success in your quest at Fawley to work towards regaining that all-important title. Thank you very much for putting us all in the picture. We'll, of course, be hearing from you again towards the end of the programme. Meantime, Reg, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Right, in just a moment, we'll be meeting Jimmy Bannister from Maintenance Services. Now, Jimmy is no stranger to New York, the destination for the prize winner in our Safe and Sound competition. Jimmy has jogged, panted and sweated, along with thousands of others, in the New York Marathon. That's right after this.
Dad doesn't see so well as he used to. Means he can't drive anymore. He used to love his car. Still the life and soul and all that, but he used to have a great job. Tied to a desk now. Oh, he's smiling through all right, but he knows he could have avoided it. They don't give you protective clothing for show. He knows that now, but it's too late. If only he'd worn the goggles. Too late.
Injury at work is preventable. Even everyday tasks just require a little thought. Most of the time, you know the risk. Consider it in everything you do. When working with tools or sharp edges, work with caution. Don't just notice hazards, make a point of removing them before you or anyone else is injured. And please wear the right protective clothing. It's not just for show. Carelessness is a lethal weapon. Join forces with safety and prevent injury. New York City, the home of Broadway and the Statue of Liberty, could be yours for the weekend. Enter our exclusive Safe and Sound competition, and between now and March, you and a partner could be jetting off to the States for the weekend of a lifetime in the Big Apple. Flying by scheduled jet to Kennedy Airport, you'll be staying at the New York Hilton, 3 nights in a luxury first-class hotel, giving you time to take in the sights and sounds of this fabulous city. The competition answers are featured in this program, so listen out for more details and win a weekend for 2 in New York City.
Now let's meet Jimmy Bannister, my next guest here on Safe and Sound, marathon runner extraordinary, and of course, the man from Maintenance Services. You must know the streets and pavements of New York like the back of your hand, don't you? Are you very familiar with them?
Not the pavements, but the streets mainly, yes.
Now, in my sports days on television, I used to remember the distance of the marathon. How long is it now?
26 miles, about 385 yards. Apparently that has something to do with, it used to be 26 miles at one of the queens or something at Windsor wanted a little bit extending because she wanted to see the end of the marathon. So
and of all the marathons you've run, what's the best time you've covered that distance in?
3 hours, 21 minutes in London.
And tired?
Exhausted, actually. But I got 15 free Mars bars out of it, with the fast ones at the back.
Let's talk about safety now at Fawley. You're in the maintenance
Yes.
area. Is that a hazardous place, do you think, generally
Very
speaking?
much so. In my opinion, they are the sort of the frontline people.
Have you identified a lot of the hazards? What are they particularly, do you think?
Well, a lot of it is mainly tripping and falling, and that's because people are busy looking around. Because I say it's a very congested area. If you look on a plant, everything's around is always on top of you. So not only are they looking at what the job is, there's a lot of obstructions around, and people tend to not clean up after themselves. They get involved with the job and drop things down and leave for someone else to tidy up.
So clearly, you've got to have your wits about you at all times, would you
Most
say?
certainly.
We've been hearing Reg Clay talking about fires and the problems of fires. Do you get fires on your area a lot?
Not mainly in the area I particularly work, but certainly in other areas where we operate with others in maintenance, because I'm a maintenance operator, of course, is that they do have fires, and that's obviously with burning and welding and this type of thing.
I was going to say, could you elaborate on that? What particular things cause fires?
Well, pieces of oily rag, or you get oil-soaked insulation, or lagging as we call it, and that's where a plant or a piece of pipe or a vessel is actually insulated, and the oil which has been dripping somewhere which is not noticed is behind it, and any heat sometimes flashes it off. Not necessarily, of course, the burning or welding, could be sort of the putting a plant back on stream again where the thing heats up.
And avoiding things like that, Jimmy, is that something which calls for, shall I say, procedures, or is it a state of mind?
No, there's a combination of both. There's a procedure. I think procedures are first class there, and I think it's human beings' interpretation of procedures, and I think we get too familiar with procedures and we rely on other people, because a procedure is not just one person involved, it's many people involved, and it's a teamwork, and you're moving from the planning, the scheduling, through process, onto the actual person doing the job, and supervisor involved. Consequently, we tend to take for granted what another person's done. What you should do, of course, is to double check everything you're doing.
In maintenance services, do you think people think safety enough, day by day?
Well, I would say they don't. Otherwise, we wouldn't have accidents. But to tell them that they don't, I think would be a little bit foolish of me, because they all consider themselves adult. They know what they're doing. They're familiar. They're experts. They're competent. So really, I think it's in the person's mind that he knows when he's done something wrong or he's doing something wrong, and that's the message. You've got to get people who, in fact, try to take a shortcut.
Now, you know your kingdom very well. I mean, what areas, we're talking now about 1988 and trying to get back the old record. I mean, what areas do you think should be carefully looked at? Where do you think the hazards might be in your area in 1988?
Well, I think it's mainly people using hand tools. If you've got a very dangerous job, I go back to the area I belong, which is high-pressure jetting, which is a very hazardous area. You don't get injuries simply because the people are aware of the hazards, and they have no choice but to act very safely. Where people do what is a mundane activity, like use hammers or axes or use knives, which seem quite a simple operation, but do it in an environment where there's other hazards which they forget about or not forget to be aware about, then you get injuries.
So in other words, you're saying it's the innocent, everyday, simple things that are the problem.
Yes, it's just things which you actually do at home, and you find out a lot of injuries at home. It's simple things you do, things you take for granted, the things you know you're competent and you think you can do without even thinking about it.
Now, Jimmy, this is a bit like Desert Island Discs, because you have a choice of music. Can we play something for you?
Well, yes, I'd like to Blueberry Hill.
It sounds like Fats Domino to me.
Yeah, okay.
Boy, you're men of the same generation, you and me. Anyway, enjoy your music, and thank you very much for talking to me. It's been a real pleasure.
That was a pleasure. Thank you.
I found my thrill on Blueberry Hill, on Blueberry Hill. When I found you, the moon stood still on Blueberry Hill, and lingered until my dream came true. The wind in the willow played love's sweet melody. But all of those vows you made are never to be. So we're apart. You gotta be still. For you are my thrill on Blueberry Hill. The wind in the willow play love's sweet melody. But all of those vows you made were only to be. So we're apart. You gotta be still.
we bid farewell to Jim Bannister, who, by the way, has departed for a quick sprint around the block to the sounds of Blueberry Hill. He trains all the time. It's my pleasure next to welcome Don Crosby to the Safe and Sound studio. Well, Don, to start with, we have to say you had an excellent run in 1987, and you must have drawn some conclusions from that. Why do you think that was? What did you do right that gave you such a terrific run?
I think we had a tremendous 87, Frank, and I think it's due to great awareness by the process workforce of the dangerous environment in which they work. And I think that certainly over the years, with the training that we've done with safety reps, the amount of safety awareness programs that we've run, it's actually had some effect on our guys, a great deal of effect, in fact.
The trouble is that when you've done well, your miracles hang like a millstone around your neck in a way, so the challenge for 88 is even greater and rather more difficult to achieve in a way, isn't it?
Yes, I think it is, Frank. It's a bit like a salesman who has to go on beating last year's figures. And I think we're very much in that ballpark. There are some areas where I see we can make some real significant improvements.
When you're working on the process, the emergency procedures are very important, aren't they? Have you got that absolutely tied up and safe, do you think, now?
I think under the emergency procedures that we've got, I think the procedures are very good that the company have laid down. However, by the very nature of the job, we are going to have hydrocarbon releases from time to time, and they usually occur because Russell Ball type valves are actually left open too long and eventually leak, that valve joints are not detected as leaking, and we consequently have a vapor cloud. And it's on those occasions that we require the response of the emergency services.
But you're saying that in a sense you don't want to have to use the emergency procedure, you want it to become redundant because emergencies are not arising. Do you think that state of affairs will ever exist?
I don't think we'll ever quite reach that point, Frank, but I do believe that with a bit more vigilance we can actually cut down on the number of emergencies that we do presently have.
What about slips, trips and falls? Everybody's talking generally at Fawley that if there is a kind of weak spot in the armament of safety, that may be it.
Yes, it's certainly at the forefront of everybody's mind, and certainly our particular off-sites operators who do go into areas where very often it's poorly lit are open to that kind of hazard. And I know we've got some plans in 88 to try to help us avoid those sorts of incidents.
The other problem you have a great responsibility because in a sense, other people's safety is in your hands, particularly when it comes to permits to work. Is that a responsibility that you find very onerous?
It's a responsibility that we take very seriously. We do stringent checks both from the operators and the chief operators before any work is allowed to commence. We have a number of procedures in place to enable us to do that. I think that if you analyse the statistics, it becomes fairly obvious that most of our serious incidents and injuries on process are actually caused between the hours of 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock. And that's...
Why is that? Let me just interrupt you there. Why is that?
That's because it's a particular time of high intense activity when all the job preparation is being done for the maintenance workforce to come in and complete.
And darkness itself on shifts must be a hazard, eh?
I think the darkness itself applies, Frank, both on the way into work and once in work driving around the refinery, very early hours of the morning, very often before the gritting wagons are out and about. So I think we do need to pay particular attention there. And I would say that things like driving an igloo is a campaign that we're going to run as well in 1988. By that I mean where the car is completely frosted up and all you've got is a little peephole. I think we've all done it from time to time.
We have all done it. Do you know that had never occurred to me? We've all done that, haven't we? On misty, cold mornings?
I think we have, and I think we're leaving ourselves wide open to all sorts of serious incidents if we continue to do so.
OK, well, thank you very much indeed for that. And I must say, with the bitterly cold weather that only January and February can bring, perhaps Don't Drive in an Igloo would seem quite an appropriate title for a record. I must say, to the best of my knowledge, nobody's released it yet. But you have a choice of music. Do you have a choice of music? And why have you chosen what you're going to choose?
I do have a choice of music, Frank. I'd like to go for Cliff Richard's Some People, particularly because people have been my business for the last 5 years, and I'm very concerned about them, hence the need to keep the safety drive underway.
Well, God bless you, and the very best of luck with safety on process in 1988. And thank you very much for talking to me.
Thank you, Frank. It's been a pleasure.
Some people, they tease one another, take pride in themselves, keeping the other one down. Well, I'm not like that at all. so aimlessly, not like lovers do. Well, I'm not like that at all. Some people they long for each other, they love to talk, holding the other one's hand. They always understand. Some people cry, some people know why. With a word unspoken, with a voice unheard, when a thought is broken by a tender word, when a heart is moved, when a heart is thrown, the silence tells you you're not alone. Some people are born for each other, they love to walk, holding the other one's hand. They always understand. Some people cry, some people know why. Some people. Some people are born for each other. We love to walk, holding the other one. Some people they long for each other. They love to talk, holding the other one. Some people are born for each other. We love to walk, holding the other one. Holding the other one, holding each other.
Some People. That's the choice of music there from Don Crosby. Now then, we're just a few minutes away from giving you the details of how to enter that exclusive Safe and Sound competition. The prize is fantastic. And that'll be after we've heard from Alison Catamole. Alison is from the Refinery's technical department, and she'll be joining us right after this.
Cycling into work on a day like this keeps me fit. Just take a look at that fluorescent yellow bib. Makes him look a right wally. Hey, watch out! Sorry, mate, I didn't see you. You all right?
Oh, I'll be okay.
The message is clear. If you're driving, look before you start. Reverse park. Getting out of the space will be easier and safer. Think bike. And cyclists, don't trust to luck. Make sure you're visible.
Don't worry. I'll just go to medical.
If only I'd seen you, you know. You should wear one of those fluorescent bibs.
Drive carefully and join forces with safety. Rubbish. You know it's a fire hazard, so why leave it lying about, waiting to ignite? You can prevent fires by careful area preparation. Keep flammable materials away from heat sources and stay aware. Ask yourself if anything you're doing could cause a fire. If it can, take precautions. Fawley is one of the safest refineries in Europe. We want to be the safest. Help us. Join forces with safety and prevent fire.
Right, we now come to Alison Catamole. Hello, I said you were from the Refinery's technical department. What sort of ground does that cover? What sort of area of operation are you working in?
Well, to be honest, it's involved in just about every area of the refinery. We are essentially a support group. We are involved in project development and engineering. We're involved in all the laboratory work that's done on the refinery, testing products. And we're also involved in the area that I work in as a technical support group to the operating area.
Okay, so let's start with the laboratory, which I gather is quite small and very few people work there, but nevertheless there are special hazards there, I imagine, aren't there?
Yes, there are very special hazards. One particular hazard that I know they get involved in is actually testing tanks where breathing apparatus has to be worn, and you can imagine the particular risks associated with that. But the lab does have a very particular safety record. They've actually achieved 23 years without a time-losing injury. And
23 years?
That's right, and I think that's something they can be rightly proud of.
Now then, when you move out of there, or you say you're all over the place, I just wonder whether you are sufficiently familiar with safety procedures anywhere you might go in the refinery. Is that a possibility that other people work there, the process people work there, the maintenance people work there, they have the safety habits drilled into them for their particular job? Are you aware of all this?
I think it's a very interesting point, Frank, because we can actually be involved in going out into different areas of the refinery. Maybe the power formers one day, maybe the pipe stills the next day. And obviously there are different hazards associated with each area. We've tried to overcome this by making sure that all the people who work in technical department are adequately trained in the basic procedures that are safety related. But also we've actually developed in 1987 an update of the manual that we use for visiting plant areas. And that includes all the information that's needed for an engineer going out onto a new plant. So before they're going out, they can look in the manual. It will tell them all about the gas alarms, the layout of the block, and any specific safety hazards that there might be.
You have this rather sort of fancy name, safety audits, don't you? That means, I gather, that you actually check up on each other from a safety point of view, do you?
Yes, that's right. This was an initiative begun in 1986, and we've continued it very successfully through 1987, and looking forward to it continuing in 1988. Essentially, everybody in TD is audited. You could call it checking up, but we prefer to call it audited by another more experienced engineer. So it's not line organised. We like to think of it not as a stick to beat people with, but a coaching or training exercise. And it's an area that we feel maybe other areas of the refinery, maybe the maintenance forces, maybe the process areas, might be able to learn from.
Now then, your record in 1987 was splendid. Presumably you've learnt a lot from that. What would you like to say about the lessons you've learned from 1987?
Well, of course, essentially the technical department is not an area that's at high risk, and we've tried to make sure that our performance has continued at the high level it has. We've done a number of things to try and improve the way we look at safety, and those have involved, as I mentioned, updating the manual for visiting operating areas. We've managed to get our safety reference file onto a computer, which is a very simple way and a single source for all safety information that we might be involved with, from how to get safety spectacles to what the safest way to ride a bike is. We also had a very successful family day in 1987, and we're looking forward to the family day there'll be in 1988.
You see, you say you're not at high risk, but we're not really talking about high risks in the accident area in the refinery. We're talking about simple things like trips and falls and stumbles, which everybody does.
That's right, and I think it's worth remembering that slips and trips and falls are just as easy in a corridor or in an office as they are out on site. And I think it's another area where everybody needs to think of. We sometimes think that the only risk area is actually out on site with all the hazardous materials and equipment that we're dealing with, but it's just as easy to trip over a trailing lead or trap your finger in a filing cabinet.
Very simple things. Okay, so you're looking forward to 1988, onwards and upwards, and maintaining the record.
That's right. I think one record that we'd particularly like to retain in technical department is that of Refinery Driver of the Year. We were very proud to have 4 finalists in 1987, and actually a member of technical department was Driver of the Year. So we're looking forward to retaining that next year.
Good. Since we're talking about records, what is the record you'd like us to play for you?
I'd like Where Do You Go To, My Lovely by Peter Sarsted.
Like Marlene Dietrich, and you dance like Zizi Jeanmaire. Your clothes are all made by Balmain, and there's diamonds and pearls in your hair. Yes, there are. You live in a fancy apartment off the Boulevard Saint-Michel, where you keep your Rolling Stones records and a friend of Sacha Distel. Yes, you do. But where do you go to, my lovely, when you're alone in your bed? Tell me the thoughts that surround you. I want to look inside your head. Yes, I do. I've seen all your qualifications you got from the Sorbonne, and the painting you stole from Picasso. Your loveliness goes on and on, yes it does. When you go on your summer vacation, you go to Juan-la-Pin with your carefully designed topless swimsuit. You get an even suntan on your back and on your legs. And when the snow falls, you're found in Samoritz with the others of the jet set. And you sip your Napoleon brandy, but you never get your lips wet, no you don't. But where do you go to, my lovely, when you're alone in your bed? Won't you tell me the thoughts that surround you? I want to look inside your head, yes I do. Your name, it is heard in high places. You know the Aga Khan. He sent you a racehorse for Christmas, and you keep it just for fun, for a laugh. They say that when you get married, it'll be to a millionaire, but they don't realize where you came from. And I wonder if they really care or give a damn. Where do you go to, my lovely, when you're alone in your bed? Tell me the thoughts that surround you. I want to look inside your head, yes I do. I remember the back streets of Naples, two children begging in the rags, both touched with a burning ambition to shake off their lowly born takes, and they try. So look into my face, Marie Claire, and remember just who you are. Then go and forget me forever. But I know you still bear the scar deep inside, yes you do. I know where you go to, my lovely, when you're alone in your bed. I know the thoughts that surround you, 'cause I can look inside your head.
There's a smashing piece of music, Peter Sarstedt, Alison Catamol's choice for our programme today. Well, Alison has been joined round the studio table now by Don and by Jimmy, and we've been talking on the programme about Fawley's slogan, joining forces with safety for 1988. Alison, a good slogan, do you think?
Yes, I do. I think safety is a team effort, and I think all of us have got to work together, maintenance, forces, the process group and technical department and all the areas at Fawley. We must work together to make 1988 our safest year.
Don, the problem is making people think about safety, isn't it?
Yes, it really is. And it's long been a common goal of both the trade unions and the company to aim for the best safety record that Exxon can produce anywhere in the world.
Jimmy, it's a question really, is it not, of keeping a little part of your mind every day with safety in it. I mean, all the other things you've got to think about, because people don't think it'll ever happen to them. They will not be the ones to have the accident. In the end, they are.
That's right. That's a common failing for most of us, whether you're inside or refined outside. I think the important thing is that if we want to make 1988 a safe year, then we've got to treat these type of messages we're putting over not as a gimmick, we've heard it all before, but seriously think about it, because the end result, we are the ones, in fact, who suffer the injuries.
Right, Reg. No philosophy this time, but some really good target points, specific things that you'd have us listen to.
Well, let me give you some things I'd like to see done in 1988. First of all, the things which spoiled our safety records were people fell over, they hurt themselves, they ran into things. And in 1988, we want people to be extra special careful. We want them to avoid slips, trips, and falls. Now, there are some other things, some rules that I'd like people to follow as well, and perhaps I could just say a few words on those. First of all, we'd like people to be aware. We'd like them to use common sense. We'd like them to follow the rules. We'd like them to set an example. And when necessary, we'd like them to intervene. We'd like them to avoid incidents. And we believe incidents can be avoided by following those few simple guidelines.
And the sheet can be clean again.
Yes, we'd like to get through 1988 with a performance better than we've ever achieved before and back on that target road to being the safest refinery in the world.
So, the final word there from the refinery manager, Reg Clay. But Safe and Sound isn't quite over yet. What about that fabulous holiday in New York?
How would you like to win a weekend for two in New York City? Well, now you can in our exclusive Safe and Sound competition. The prize is 3 nights in the luxury New York Hilton, a first-class hotel right in the heart of Manhattan. All flights and a sightseeing trip are included. Taking part is easy. Each of the guests in this program reveals a number during their interview with Frank Bough. And here are some clues to help you.
There is no acceptable level of injuries for Reg Clay, but what's the number he's looking to beat in 1988?
After the London Marathon, Jimmy Bannister got his teeth stuck into a number of these.
Don Crosby and Process are looking forward to 1988 and have a tremendous number behind them.
Peter Sarsted is the choice of record for Alison Catamol, but from the lab, there's a record of another kind. All you have to do is identify each of those 4 numbers and fill in the spaces on the entry card you'll find with this cassette. When you've done that, in no more than 5 words, think up an original title or slogan for the refinery's next Family Safety Day in July. If you get the numbers correct and your slogan's chosen, you and a partner will be going to New York absolutely free. Your entry should be on the official form and must reach room 57 of the admin building no later than Friday the 22nd of January. So, enter the Safe and Sound competition now, and between now and March, you could be in New York City.
So there you are, it's the numbers game you're playing. Very, very simple, isn't it? Mind you, look out for the tricky one. Entries must be in January 22nd. January 22nd. Now before that, don't forget, you're in the most dangerous time of the year. Beware January and the back to work syndrome, I think you call it. Stop and think. It's igloo time you're in. So stay safe for January and keep well for the rest of 1988. Smashing being with you today. Thank you very much to all our guests who've contributed. This is Frank Bough. Goodbye to you.